Decentralized gold and silver on the Marhaba network. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Ainslie Insights, brought to you by Ainslie Bullion, Ainslie Crypto, and the Gold and Silver Standard, as the Ainslie Group celebrates 50 years. Today, we welcome a very special guest to the show, Khalid from the Marhaba network. He's here today to introduce his platform to those who may be new to what it is and catch us up on what's been happening in the world of decentralized finance options for tokenized gold and silver, as well as really discussing the whole sort of aspect of this area. It's really fascinating. How are you going today, Khalid?
Really well. Thanks for inviting me on. Looking forward to it.
Thank you for coming on. Now, we were having a bit of a discussion before this, and you've got a really interesting background. And I know you're a bit of a hard money advocate, like a lot of the people watching this will be. So, you love your gold and silver. Can you give us a little bit of your background before we begin and a little bit of what sort of brought you here today?
Sure. So I'm definitely background-wise a TradFi person. So I spent 5 years at Credit Suisse, which is no longer with us. That was where I started my career in emerging markets risk. And then the defining part of my career was actually 16 years at Moody's Investor Services. So there I had a number of senior roles, but structured finance, credit derivatives, but finishing up in the Middle East as the global head of Islamic finance, as well as head of Middle East banks. And it was that got me really fluent in the whole banking sector, fractional reserve banking, central
Mm.
banking, money printing, all these things. But I still hadn't made the link with crypto or Bitcoin and hard money. Then I read a book, the Bitcoin Standard. It's probably must reading for anybody in the space, and that really started to take me down the rabbit hole. And so for me, I think global debt to GDP is around 300+%.
Mm.
That money's never getting paid back. So what happens is central banks print money, and it's usually the middle class, the lower income populations that take the brunt of that money printing, the inflation that comes through. So fast forward a bit, and I've been investing in a number of startups. Marhaba DeFi or Marhaba Network is one of those ones I've invested in. And what really pulled me towards it is this concept of a decentralized financial ecosystem. It's a bit seditious, but I think centralization of a lot of things, whether it's centralization of banking, central banks, whether it's centralization of healthcare, we were speaking about, COVID, etc., whether it's centralization of politics.
Mm.
Once you start getting these concentrations of power, whether it's big pharma, big tech, big banks, you start to get a very fragile system, a system that thinks in a very narrow way. If you can devolve and decentralize people's economic activity, people's financial activity to the level of the community, to the level of the person, then I think people make decisions that are better for them rather
Yes.
than being told at the highest level that, oh, you know what, the economy's not doing so well. Let's cut interest rates for everybody. The economy's doing too well. Let's raise interest rates for everybody. And you get this one size fits all financial system. And throughout it all, the the union between politicians and central bankers means that I need to spend money. I need to bribe voters with their own money. Where can I get that from? Oh, let me just print money. And so it's throughout history you've seen whoever has the power to control money typically eventually abuses it. And
Yes.
then you get back to the history. What has worked over thousands of years? It's been forms of money that you can't just print, and that's been invariably gold and silver. There's a reason why central banks at the moment are hoarding gold like there's no tomorrow, because they've
Yes.
worked out they've gone too far down this hole. It's very untransparent how much gold is in the world. People don't necessarily publish their reserves, and I think uh, if you can have Bitcoin, you can argue whether it's hard money or not. But let's just take Bitcoin, gold, together. If you do allow people to hold their wealth in hard money, you can help maybe try to avoid this tsunami of wealth destruction or inflation that's coming. And by putting gold on chain, you've made the liquid liquid. People can't carry around 50 kilos, or God knows if I could have 50 kilos of gold, but even 50 grams of gold, or 5 kilos. But if you have this proof that you own this gold, why couldn't you buy a Starbucks and a microgram of gold, or
Yes.
go to the supermarket and so on? So I think commodity tokens are a way of bringing in concepts, ancient concepts around the trading of value. You can keep your money in gold as a store of value, or you can use it to maybe one day buy a house. So that's the macro picture. And Marhaba was an attempt by the founders to build a values-based DeFi. Values, ethics, and DeFi crypto don't really gel. Crypto's a place maybe to make lots of money, pump and dump, lots of buyer beware, and so on. And in Islam, there's some pretty strong principles around cheating, corruption, even money, even interest. Money's meant to be a form of exchange, not a means of value in itself. That piece of paper is not meant to have value. So there's all these principles that you may have thought were quite anachronistic. Oh, those are 1,000 years ago. They're not relevant today. When you look at the state of the world today, I don't know what Australia's debt to GDP is, but I'm pretty sure, along with a lot of
it's fairly consistent that we see across most of the Western world, at least, they're all heading in the one direction, regardless of the specific numbers, aren't they?
Yeah, because they've worked out I can keep raiding the cookie jar.
Yes.
And the people don't seem to notice. And if prices are going up, it's because of, I don't know, the war in Ukraine, or it's because of Russia, or it's because of COVID. There's always another reason why prices are going up, except the fact that if you have more money for the same number of physical assets, well, your house prices are going to go up.
Yes.
I don't know what it's like in Australia again, but a house in the UK used to be, I think, 2 or 3 times your annual salary about when I was younger, 30 plus years ago. Now it's about 5 or 6 times. Has that
Exactly the
house
same story here.
intrinsically?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not that the house has become intrinsically more useful, but if you want to preserve your wealth, you're pretty much better off holding a house because it holds its value irrespective of the currency or gold. Cash is almost the worst place to store your money long term. So all of these things coming together, I think crypto, DeFi, blockchain, Web3, for the first time in about 400 years, 500 years, since fractional reserve banking was kind of created and central banking was created with the Bank of England, I think you have this toolkit through tokenization, through Web3, through blockchain that enables you and I to finance each other's business without ever using a bank. We could do some collateralized lending with a smart contract, and I can back maybe you can back your borrowing with gold, a gold token. And guess what? If you don't pay me back, smart contract executes, the Ainslie gold token ends up in my account. And we've never touched a bank. And we've never touched fiat money. Well, at some point, you'll probably have to, until people start accepting houses in gold. But that could happen. Maybe in 10 years, maybe 20, maybe 30. I don't know. So I have this. We can't force it. The banking sector is far too powerful. But if you let the toolkit grow organically, people have a choice where they want to hold their money, gold, silver, Bitcoin, etc. Maybe there's a chance of a parallel complementary system, and over time, the best system, will hopefully rise. It's just whether or not
there's so much to
yeah.
unpack. Well, absolutely, but there's so much to unpack there because it's a story that we've been talking about a lot, and I know that people watching this will really agree with so much of what you've said there. That we are at that point in history where you can't really escape the debasement of the currency, and that's something certainly that I subscribe to as well. But I think where people get a little bit stuck is how they actually process that. And you said a little bit before about the difficulty of actually carting around that gold and silver with you and transacting, particularly when we're in a very different world to the world that we were in potentially hundreds of years ago, when that was absolutely the norm. Although other people will point out it wasn't that long ago that we were still using gold and
Yeah.
silver coins. It's only really recently that, as in the last sort of 50 years or less, that stopped. But there's complexity around that, and I think that that's probably a good segue into maybe if you can give us a little bit of background about the Marhaba network platform and how that actually attempts to solve this problem.
So Marhaba Network fundamentally is a a self-custody wallet.
Right.
So the idea of self-sovereignty, which the positive is that you control your own wealth. The negative is that you're responsible for your own wealth. And keys, passwords, and so on. And look, we're working on features to abstract away some of that complexity. I mean, people shouldn't know actually, or shouldn't care that it's blockchain underneath. All I care about is an app.
Yeah.
My gold is in my app, my money's in my app, my Bitcoin's in my app, and how it works at the back end, people shouldn't care. So the Marhaba ecosystem is fundamentally a wallet, and it's multi-chain. So it's on 9 blockchains. Solana's the most recent to be added, but Bitcoin, Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain, Avalanche, etc. Because we don't believe that we are the ones to force who do you think is the winner of the blockchain wars? No. We are multi-chain. We service everyone, or as many as we can manage. And then you have varying features of the wallet. So the basic is the ability to you've got ramp providers. We partner with regulated ramp providers to convert fiat into crypto, and soon we'll have crypto back to fiat. So we're not a bank. We don't have these facilities. So we partner with Lego style, these regulated providers to get money in and out of the system. But once you're in the system, it's meant to be an ethical, values-based, safe space. So we actually have what we call a board of scholars, of ethical and religious scholars, who go through everything that we do and say, actually, no, this token is linked to lending, and lending for interest is usurious, or this project supports guns or glorifies guns or pornography. So you won't find any of that sort of stuff, within the ecosystem. So we have this value safe space. And then within that, you've got, through our partnership with Ainslie, we're quite conscious of high quality regulated type solutions. So Ainslie is our bullion provider effectively, where our community, when they're feeling risk off or they want to hedge directly through the wallet, they can buy Ainslie Gold. And that's very important, because at the end of the day, it's still a physical asset. It's great that we're all on chain and we're all on digital and so on and so forth. Bitcoin is the only truly native reserve asset. But if I want to hold gold, that last mile, who's the guy with the vault?
Yes.
I'm not going to trust a setup that was 5 weeks ago or even 5 years ago. The fact that you guys have been, for better words, knocking around for 50 years, as far as it goes, I know that the last mile of where the gold is, who is doing the audit, because at the moment I'm just trading this gold token. I could fake that token if I didn't have a blue chip partner on the back end saying, no, your 1 gram of gold on your wallet is 1 gram of gold in my vault. So that last mile of Ainslie's is critical. So we have a gold and silver exchange where you can buy and sell gold and silver. I'm pretty sure when we launch, and I think it's still the case, it's the cheapest on-chain gold that we could find in terms of transaction fees. You've got swaps so that you can buy your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, etc. There's also an income product where you can chuck your US dollar stable coins and it will tell you that, look, here are some different on-chain pools that generate 5 to 10% type of yield. So I've just listed there 3 types of products that are different points on the risk continuum. If you're bullish and you're pro risk, you go 2 feet into Bitcoin. If you're ultra conservative and you're a gold bug, just hold on to your gold on chain. And if you're somewhere in the middle, you can still hold US dollar fiat backed stable coins, but you're earning by acting as a sort of online currency house, or providing liquidity to platforms that need it, you can earn returns. Our Sharia board does a good job of looking through to see, are they earning their returns from interest-based lending? If they are, you can't get that source of income.
Yep.
Ours has to be staking, liquidity mining. For things to be of ethical approval in our system, you have to have done some form of work effectively.
Right. Yep.
And you're getting paid for work. So validating is a form of work. Providing your collateral as a form of currency exchange is part of putting your capital at risk. So there's all these ways that you can earn without lending. And so that's part of that principle. Other products we have, NFT marketplace. And the big thing that's just been launched is what I would call consumer payments. So you can buy your MasterCard, master debit card in crypto. So up to 1,000 prepaid card. You can then hook it up to your Apple Pay or Samsung Pay, and then you can go and spend your crypto wherever you see Apple Pay or Crypto Pay. So that, Samsung Pay. So wherever that friction is, and I think in Australia it might be an issue of getting that money in and out. Actually, I have to check if Australia it's active in about 80 countries. I have to check if Australia has some particular laws with MasterCard or Visa, but the big card issuers are the partners there. You're not dealing with us, but you have providers that allow you to spend your crypto in the real world. So you can get like Netflix gift vouchers or Amazon and so on. So rather than going through that pain of ramping with a bank that in the UK, the bank might shut you down and so on and so forth, you can live your life on chain with your gold, with your silver, with your Amazon or your grocery shop gift vouchers, with your MasterCard prepay. And so for that generation who are completely on chain, you now have that full ecosystem. And maybe, when we do bring in DeFi lending and borrowing without interest, etc., you'll be able to start your own small business using the community's funds, saying, hey, look, I've got this small business, raising funds, here's some collateral. It's some of my Ainslie gold tokens, or maybe it's even some real estate tokens. Pledging it as collateral, finance my business. I'll pay you a share of my percent. There's a lot of complexities to that, but if we can, I think 100% within a decade, much of the world will be on chain. There's a study by BCG that says 10% of global GDP is expected to be on chain by 2030. And the range of estimates they give for on-chain assets, on-chain financial assets, including equities, bonds, commodities, etc. It's a pretty broad range, but it's from 16 to 60 trillion US on-chain by 2030. So we're heading there. Yeah.
I was just going to say, you have that foundation there through that comprehensive platform, as you've described, with all of the capacity to bring that together. It's really where it has to begin, isn't it? Because you have to sort of start somewhere. And you use the analogy a bit earlier about Lego blocks. It feels like a lot of what you're building here is the Lego block sort of foundation, so that you can keep plugging more of these things on, so that you can actually, and the DeFi in particular, I'd like to maybe even explore a little bit more of that you can go down this path and actually realize the potential that's being promised, that we can have our financial futures move on chain, and particularly in that DeFi angle. Can you maybe give a little bit more flavor around what I know that you're sort of saying that's still in development, but I know there was a TijarX solution and different ways there. Can you maybe give a little bit of flavor around how DeFi could actually sit in this, actually decentralizing some of that?
Sure. So, I mean, firstly, look, it's a journey, obviously, and there's the regulatory aspects that we have to consider with DeFi and CeFi. But actually, I've spent so much time in the old world regulated space. I have no um, fears that actually you can come up with DeFi solutions that are, KYC'd, AML'd,
Yes.
between parties. It's just, you know, um, technology catching up, customers catching up, regulators catching up, and even banks. There's an opportunity for them. I know it's a bit of a contradiction, banks and DeFi, but why couldn't a bank create a DeFi platform for its own customers? It would be an easy sort of hybrid solution. So I think we'll get there in the end. With regards to TijarX, so TijarX um, is our commodity exchange DEX, or decentralized exchange, and that's where it's the embryonic stage of uh, how you can get commodities on chain into your wallet. And so within the app, that, by the way, we hit 300,000 downloads
Oh,
from
congratulations.
the app. Yeah, from the Apple and Samsung stores. 300,000 downloads. I think we're in sort of 90 plus countries. Um, and what blew our minds, remember, these are non-custodial wallets, which means it's not our money, it's your money.
Yes.
But once you connect a wallet to your address, you start to see the volume of what this community are doing. In the 18 months since launch, what's interesting, you've seen 3 billion of on-chain transactions with this community. What was very interesting, FTX. Before FTX, the volume was about, I don't know, 100K a week. The week of FTX, the volume jumped to 189 million US.
Wow.
So everybody thought, my money's not safe on a centralized exchange. I don't know if FTX can go down, Binance can go down,
Hmm.
Huobi can go down. What do I know? Let me go into self custody. And I'm one of those people, actually. I had all my liquidity on a big exchange, pulled it all off the exchange that day, put it in my Sahel wallet, my Marhaba wallet, and put some of it in gold, put some of it in, so. And now that it's pulled me on chain, I'm an old school guy. um, I now am quite comfortable with that, and the numbers actually, it's trended down from the FTX peak, but it's still around 15 mil volume weekly. Again, it's not our money; it's your money, so we can't control it. We can't sort
Yep.
of and and you could be using actually multiple wallets on the same address even. But once you connect our wallet, the only reason you connect our wallet is because it's a values based wallet. Other wallets are much less restrictive, whereas we screen tokens. Commodities are inherently compliant. So
Hmm.
TijarX is the mechanism by when you go to the wallet and you see sort of staking, you see a DAO for governance and so on, you have an entry there for TijarX, which is our commodity exchange. And then you go through there and then you fund your wallet with stable coins. You need some Ethereum for gas fees, etc. And then you can buy direct, gold tokens in the platform. And then you'll see the Ainslie Gold or the Ainslie Silver in your wallet, and you could, sell it back. Ainsley, we have that ability together,
Yep.
that we create effectively a two-way market. We don't have really at the moment multiple gold providers or partners. It's still at the early stages of with our gold partner, you can buy sort of direct. And I think in Australia anyway, you can elect for physical delivery.
Yes, that's right.
You know,
Yes.
you can send it. For our overseas customers, obviously it's much more complex and so on. But lots of people buy gold without ever actually taking the physical delivery.
Yes,
So
and we do certainly through that structure always have the capacity to. I mean, it's complicated because we're obviously you're sitting the gold's vaulted down here in Brisbane, but there's always
yeah,
the capacity for people to take physical ownership of that. That's really important.
yeah. But at least for Australians, it's a pretty much frictionless
Yes, yeah. And we try to
process.
make it as
So
frictionless as possible for everyone else as well. But
yeah.
yeah, obviously distance is a problem in the physical metals, for
and
sure.
and so look, yeah, and so that gives retail, the retail crypto community, uh, the ability just to, as I mentioned, if you're feeling risk off and you want to sort of park some liquidity and not take risk, well, I mean, obviously there's still some market risk for gold, but for me, gold is your long-term play, right?
Yes.
And I think there's also a lot of I think JP Morgan was done for manipulating the gold market through derivatives.
Yeah.
So that's the problem with gold at the moment.
You need you need
The
the
lack
real
of
stuff, not the
the lack of the physical backing. If you
yes.
trade with derivatives on exchanges, it's uh it's subject to all sorts of price manipulation. So, but yeah, through TijarX, on the in the wallet, you'll see the entry. Go and buy your gold and silver, and at the back end, Ainslie, you have your ledger. So it's independently verifiable that actually, if you go, I think, to the Ainslie website, you can see,
Yes.
um, that's your token, and so you can verify. And I think that last mile with Ainslie is a critical one for trust. It is a new space. It's still a bit friction. There's still frictions involved with looking after your pass keys and wallets and so on and so. But uh, I think it's a very important product and a very important role in the ecosystem where you can't force people. You shouldn't be forcing people to say, "Oh, look, we only do Bitcoin," or "We only do crypto." You have to let people do the quiet stuff, the sensible stuff as well.
Yep.
And so we have that whole spectrum of assets. And yeah, we're very happy to work with Ainslie on that.
So I just want to pick up on one thing you're saying about, which I thought was really interesting there about FTX, right? So we had that absolute surge that you mentioned, which is just fascinating. The numbers that you're talking about of people going there during that sort of period of chaos. Maybe that settled down a bit because people become complacent again. Sometimes we have short memories in
Yeah.
this space. So do you think there's like what do you see maybe as the challenges and opportunities in having people really understand the benefits here? Because I know, gold silver standard from our perspective um, is that physical backed aspect, and people will often look exactly as you just described. They'll look at derivatives. They'll say, well, I can buy gold on my phone app with a push of a button, and I'm buying it at the current spot price. I go, if you're buying it at the current spot price, for starters, it's not physical gold, because that's not how
Yeah.
the physical markets work. So what's your sort of thoughts around promoting understanding, like that education aspect, I suppose, in getting people to really understand the importance of pretty much all those things you've talked about today?
So look, this is a tough one because uh, I do think where do customers get most of their trust from? It is, although they've suffered from reputation, it is the banks.
Hmm.
Um, so I think partnerships with banks for on-chain assets is a starting point where, through your banking app, can you buy physical backed gold and silver together on the same?
Hmm.
I think the uh, uh, the advantages of physical uh, really come in with transparency. Now, again, this is where there's some tensions. Banks maybe sometimes don't want transparency. Even regulators whose job it is to promote transparency, there's a lot of, let's say, incentive structures or tensions between central banking and DeFi. But they're almost opposite ends. I always felt the central bank's role was to also provide a level playing field for everybody, regardless of ideology, whether you're CeFi or DeFi. So if banks can get on board with the idea, banks and central banks can get on board with the idea that actually, look, if you empower people at the local level, at the individual level, you can still make profits. You can still have a business, but you can also have a much more thriving entrepreneurial economy. If people are holding physical backed gold, and you can start to sell that as a collateral mechanism for financing and business, I think the mainstreaming, actually, to simplify it, the mainstreaming needs to come, one, from the central banks kind of being on board, because frankly they control the regulations, whether through lobbying or whether through actual prudential regulations. Mainstreaming in terms of tech. So you've got regulatory, you've got mainstreaming. It's still it's not as smooth or as slick as it could be. You do need to allow for the customer who isn't sophisticated and maybe doesn't want to remember a 12 or 24 word passphrase, and then what happens if they lose it, the fact that they've lost their funds. So I think technology mainstreaming, regulatory mainstreaming, and even the education system, and this is more of a much longer term solution. I feel like English, maths, economics should actually be the third pillar of education, because if you think about what drives people's lives, mismanagement or management of wealth, income, money, is much more likely to drive poverty or a wealth than any other factor. If you don't know how to spend and how to save, if you don't understand about inflation or borrowing or debt, these are fundamental levers of education. I don't know what it's like in Australia, but it wasn't mandatory in school days to learn this stuff. Yet,
as an ex-economics teacher, I absolutely agree with everything you're saying there. And it's not mandatory. That's right. It's so important, but often not taught anyway. Yeah.
So I think if you want to, and especially Western countries nowadays that are in so much debt and have addicted us to this consumption-based economy where you buy things you don't need with money you don't have, it's a complete sort of toxic loop that's pulling people deeper and deeper into debt. I think the three pillars of education, frictionless technology, and pro-consumer, pro-empowerment regulation that allows a complementary DeFi system to evolve that still protects consumers and still prevents money laundering. I think it can be done. Those who say that crypto is just about money laundering and criminality, I think it's complete BS.
They need to get with the times. That's so a decade ago.
I think those three pillars are probably what we need to help mainstream the technology and just generally the appreciation of commodities and assets as a longer term store of wealth. Although real estate tokens, if you want to play the inflationary game, but with the real asset game, well, then maybe those are the sort of things. I think there are platforms. I came across one in Australia previously, that real estate. So I think real estate, gold, real world assets, actually, to coin a phrase, real world asset tokenization is also a way to mainstream the technology and get people on board.
Well, Khalid, it's been an absolutely fascinating conversation. From my perspective, if people want to find out more about this, the gold, silver. So goldsilverstandard.com, that's gold, silver, standard, 3 words.com is our website where people can go and sort of find out more about the tokens. But to wrap up, have you got any sort of final comments that you want to make, or maybe places you want to direct people to have a look at what you're doing
Sure.
there? And, yeah.
The easiest place is just to go to the App Store and SAHAL, like Sahal wallet. Easy. Sahal means easy in Arabic, and just go in and start playing. Right, put in $10. Maybe buy $50 of gold. Maybe buy a bit. Just start messing around. In a sort of safe space way. Get your MasterCard, hook it up to your Apple Pay. Start messing around in that ecosystem. Get comfortable, and then as the space evolves and gets more mature and you get more comfortable, you'll see more assets come on chain. And so I think experimentation, get yourself familiar, and then enjoy the freedom it offers you.
And
So
I think
that's
that's
probably the start.
absolutely great advice, because the best way with any of these things, particularly if you're unfamiliar, it's all new, is just to play. There's no better way to learn this stuff than to, and you guys have made it very easy. I can vouch for that. The app does make it very easy, and you can just download that and have a little play, and then you're starting to participate in this world. Doesn't have to be with big dollars to start to get an understanding. So I think that's really good advice.
Yeah. No, so yeah, please. And look, you can find me on LinkedIn. I mean, if you look at Marhaba, MRHB.network, connect to me on LinkedIn. I post a lot on digital assets and that space. There's the Marhaba website, and so just social media is a good way today. We've got this Telegram group of about 40,000 people that all talk about like digital assets and crypto. And again, I think we've done a good job of creating this safe space. The team are very ethically motivated to it's not just about protecting customer money, but we try to make sure that people are educated, that understand, and the products aren't there to exploit you; they're there to empower you. And if we can get the whole space to think in that way, together with partners like Ainslie, again, we have a journey ahead. But I think you're talking about years, not decades, before this stuff goes mainstream.
That's it. That's a very optimistic and upbeat way to end this. So thank you very much for coming and speaking to us today, Khalid. Really appreciate it. And we'll definitely have to get you on the program again. So thank you for that today.
Thanks, Chris. Cheers.
Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll chat again soon.